Hey everyone, Casual Gamer Dad here, and ladies and gents, we're going to talk a little bit about Diablo 4 today. And we're going to talk about Diablo 4, we're going to talk about my experience with the beta. You'll see me over there in the left. That's me from playing in the open beta. I just have that in the background a little bit there, just so you can see some of the gameplay while we're talking. But I'm sorry for the delay in making this video. I did get a chance to play it on its first weekend for only a bit, about an hour and a half, and then I played more this past weekend. I'm going to talk more in detail about that, and been busy with some things, got a sick cat at home, but long story short, here we go, right? I was thought about putting some talking points down and whatnot when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, but I didn't. I'm not typically one to take lots of notes and do lots of preparations for this sort of thing. So, such is the life of a casual gamer dad. But nonetheless, let's talk Diablo 4, what my experience was, the positives, the negatives, and some thoughts that I have, including concerns for the final release of the game coming here much quicker than you would think, right? So let's start off with just some overall thoughts, right? I am very highly anticipating this game. I'm just going to say that right out the gate. I got a chance to be there for the announcement back in BlizzCon 2019, and I waited in line 3 different times to play all 3 classes they had available, which was the Barbarian, the Sorceress, and the Druid. Okay. And I enjoyed the Druid the most during that playtime, just because it just was really enjoyable and seamless. The transitions from the Werebear to the Werewolf to the Elemental, I just really enjoyed it. It was really, really wonderful, and I have great memories of it. So needless to say, I've been very, very excited, anticipating this game. The beta was very fun to play when it wasn't laggy or having crashes, which did happen. It happened mostly on the first days, on the Fridays when things opened. I only played for an hour and a half on that first weekend for pre-release, and since I didn't play for that long, I didn't really have any issues, but I heard from friends and other people I know that were playing the game. It's very buggy, and there was lots of crashing and shutting down, and then the open beta weekend came, and that Friday morning, it took me a little bit to get on because of the queues, so there was that too. And long story short, I did have some errors and some crashes, and it took me a little bit to get back in. However, that did die down considerably the next day. There was virtually no queue, and I think there was a couple of occasional little things where I had to log off and come back on, but overall it was definitely a lot better. I feel like a lot of people at that point had already played it a bit, and so the queues weren't as bad. So it was fine. Were there still some bugs and whatnot? Yeah, I mean, there were some things that I would have reported and whatnot, but overall it was definitely very fun to play. I'll say that right off the bat. I liked the feel that I got playing the game, especially early on when it's just you. And that's something I'm going to talk a little bit about. That makes this game a bit different than its predecessors, especially compared to Diablo 2 and 3. But let's talk a little bit about, so it's fun to play, right? Okay, I think that if you've played Diablo 2 and 3, or one or the other, and you had fun with it, right? Diablo 3, I think one of the things that really kept me playing the game for as long as I did, on and off, probably about 1,000 hours, over the years, it was just fun to play. The combat was a lot of fun and enjoyable and interactive, and very happy to say that is also the case with this game. It's definitely fun and enjoyable. The skill tree, as you can see in the video, is back and offers a little bit more depth and complexity to the game, although it's not overwhelming like some of its competitors, which I like. It's not really like my cup of tea, where I literally can't play a game without following a build guide. I'm not a fan of that. You know, I can understand for some people if you are, and that's fine and all. But I played those types of games, and it just wasn't. I didn't enjoy it as much. You know, I like simplicity, but I want some depth, right? I do want that. You know, I want some build diversity, and I think that this game will definitely offer that. You know, so there's that. So right out the gate, that's no question, right? Uh, is that enough to get a person coming back again and again and again? Well, you would think that if a game is fun, that would, and you just like playing the game, that it would be enough. I hate to say it, but with my experience with Diablo 3, that's not the case. You know, and I know I said I played it for 1,000 hours, right? That's over, you know, a 10-year period. And to be honest, I haven't played Diablo 3 in a bit. I was very tempted to play this last season, and who knows, I may still jump on it because I know some people are playing it, but I haven't, and so it's been a bit. And when I did play it the last few times, I would come on for maybe a couple of weeks at most, like really hard, and then it just fizzled out, right? So it'd be fun for a bit. I mean, needless to say, you know, I mean, I paid $60 plus 15 for the Necromancer pack and getting 1,000 hours of enjoyment. I mean, who can really complain about that, you know? But I think the issue is the expectation that people have had given their experience with Diablo 1 and how captivating and just addictive the gameplay was, and then Diablo 2 as well, which had a lot of pros going for it as the sequel to Diablo 2. I think that sets the bar really high, right? And, you know, Blizzard has talked, you know, in their dev streams and whatnot about this game and their updates about really making this a live service and setting up this high expectation for us to expect to play this for years to come, right? And if you like this sort of game, which, you know, I do, it's not the only type of game I like, for sure. I do like turn-based strategy, tactical strategy, CRPGs, right? I do enjoy that quite a bit. As well, but I do like this type of game when I don't have to really think too much. I can just play, go, and kill monsters, loot grind, right? And I think that's a big part of what Diablo 3 was missing, really. It was the itemization, right? I'm going to get back to that topic because I think that's one of the more important things that people really aren't addressing enough in the many, many videos that I've seen that are talking about this game so far. But nonetheless, very fun to play. As you can see here visually, well, I've seen people have different opinions. You know, I think it looks beautiful. Is the best looking game? No, it's not. But I think it looks really great. I love the blood and the gore, and just the feeling I get when I'm in a dungeon. It's just creepy. I'm alone, and you know, I put it up to World Tier 2. There's going to be 4 tiers of difficulty on release, and which could change with time, right? And I put it up to the higher difficulty, and it was a little challenging at times, depending on which class I play it, I'll say. So that's kind of one of my concerns. And I'm going to get to that. But overall, it was definitely fun. It wasn't too challenging. I have a feeling that the higher tiers will be more challenging. And we didn't have access to World Tier 3 or 4 because the recommended level is very high. Higher than we're able to get in this game. So with that being said, I will say that I played all 5 classes. I played the Barbarian the first hour and a half when I played. Then I leveled up the Druid on the following weekend all the way to 20. I didn't get any of the characters to level cap, which is kind of unfortunate because I would have liked to have tried maybe some of the ultimate skills. That's something that's available in the skill tree. But you had to hit higher level than 20. I think closer to 25. Maybe not 25 exactly, but you know, close to that. So I didn't have enough of the points to get to the ultimate skills, unfortunately. So that's kind of one of the things I feel I missed out on. But I mean, a lot of builds apparently you didn't really need it because they were strong enough as it is. I played the Sorceress next. I got her to 17. The Barbarian, I should say, only got to level 8. You know. Because I didn't get to play it that much and I really wanted to try out all the classes. I got the Necromancer to, I believe, 11 and the Rogue to 10. Okay. All very different play styles, all felt very good and fun to play in their own way. I will say the Necromancer and the Sorceress felt the strongest right out the gate. It was no contest. The Sorceress, I couldn't believe how overwhelmingly powerful it felt compared to the Druid, who apparently I started seeing from a lot of people was the weakest and most difficult. It's funny, I ended up playing it the most, though, because I still loved it. So, just goes to show that even if your character class maybe isn't necessarily the strongest right off the bat, it can still be viable and still be fun to play and still good. And I will say that later, once I got better gear, specifically some legendary powers, that the Druid really came together. I was trying all the different builds out until I finally found something I felt was something I enjoyed doing. But nonetheless, I think there's going to be lots of build diversity in the game, so I think that's a really great thing. It doesn't always have to be about the min-maxers and the top. You know, not everyone's going to be competing. If you're a casual gamer like me, you're probably not going to be doing that. You're just really going to be wanting to have fun playing either by yourself or with friends. So that leads me into the next thing. I think we should talk about that next. So, as you can see here from the gameplay, early on in the game, it's me just playing by myself, and I really like that there are parts of the game that you can really enjoy by yourself, and I also like that there are parts that, such as world bosses, for example, which I didn't get to do, but I did battle a Shava back in 2019, so it wasn't going to be a novel experience for me anyways, but I do like that. I think that there's a possibility they may have missed the mark in one thing, though, and I think that where they may have missed the mark is that, I know this question got asked a lot, so we knew it was coming, but they allow for you to see other players in hubs, which, I'm fine with that. I think where it becomes a little problematic maybe is when you're joining random, I noticed when you're joining random little mini events throughout the world, that you have a tendency to run into other players. And, I know people that don't necessarily like that very much, and it's not really their play style. They really want to just play solo. And I think that coming from Diablo 3, where Diablo 3, you only played with other people if you wanted to, if you grouped up with them and you wanted to. Diablo 2, interestingly enough, the content was really, and it still is, enjoyable. I still play D2R, and it still was really enjoyable playing through the content with other players, and I found that I tended to gravitate towards more solo farming when I was looking for loot. Sometimes I'd farm with others, but more often than not, I'd say probably 80-90% of the time I was farming by myself, So I think the part they might have missed is maybe allowing for someone to opt into, a more private experience where maybe you'll see players in hubs, but then not necessarily out in the world unless you kind of opt into that, having like a public versus private, or maybe even not at all. I know someone, I have a family member who would have preferred to not run into anyone at all. So you can see I died there because I was definitely not prepared for that. Can't just hang and spank there. So I don't know. I'd love to hear from you. What y'all think about that? I know there are some people who, again, tend to prefer that solo play, and they want to encourage people to play together, and I think that's fine. I think it makes sense from a monetary standpoint. People are going to want to play with their friends. They're going to ask their friends to buy the game. Hey, play this game with me, yada, yada. And I think in the long run, they added some MMO elements to this game, and that's fine. But I think that they could make both groups happy, and I think that they could allow for the solo players to really get their enjoyment out of it as well, and also just please the people who want to. I think in Diablo 3, you definitely didn't have to play with other people, and I usually didn't unless it was my friends. So I just think that they could. I think it would be so easy for them to change that as well. They could literally just change a few lines of code, from what I understand from a developer standpoint, and very easily make that doable. I don't know if they will. I don't know if they want to. I don't know if they see the incentive, but I think there's an opportunity there to do that and make all those different mods of players happy. So, anyways, let's move on from that. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the balances. You can see with the Barbarian, I had a really hard time I had to definitely make sure I was dodging big hits. When I got vulnerable, you saw the little purple crack on the life bar. That's when you become vulnerable, and enemies can become vulnerable as well, and you take a lot more damage. So it takes me a lot longer to kill. With the druid, it took me even longer. It took me about 4 to 5 minutes to kill this boss, I'd say at least. And with the sorceress, it took me about 20 seconds, I'd say. It was that quick. There's just no comparison in power. The same with the necromancer. Super, super powerful. Felt really strong. I think that some of these classes just take a little bit longer to come into their own. Now, with that being said, I think that that's okay, and that it's gonna even out in the end. It's gonna make sense, and I'm gonna talk about that in a bit when I talk about itemization, which let's just get into that right now. Because what ends up happening is that things change pretty drastically. You can see here that people were the first weekend were complaining about the barbarian being weak and whatnot. Well, there is someone who made a YouTube video, streamer, I believe, and I saw Asmongold do a reaction to it, and I'm just going to show it to you because I think it'll make more sense. I do have some concerns about itemization. Okay, I do have some concerns about that. But really quickly before I show you that, I just want to say that I thought it was a lot of fun playing and picking up items and checking them out and seeing what they do. I don't know if they upped the amount of drop rates and whatnot. I definitely found several legendaries throughout the weekend on different characters. And, one of the biggest issues that, many people had with D3 was the itemization, especially comparatively to Diablo 2, which Diablo 2 has a really phenomenal itemization system, and some people may disagree with that, but you can fight me on that all you want. But the fact of the matter is that there are items in D2 that, a white item you could find, it can be worth a lot. It could be extremely valuable. Just the other day I was playing D2R, and I found a 4-socketed Grand Matron Bro with +3 to skills, and 12% enhanced damage. It was a superior one. So for those of you who don't know, it's just the reason why it's valuable is because it can be used in a rune word, which we don't have in this game yet, but I know we're going to get at some point. And I traded it for a high rune. It was traded for a bear rune. For those of you who don't know, that's basically the most valuable rune there is in the game, which is some of the more coveted things in the game, because runes help you build rune words, which are really, really powerful, right? For building, for speccing into a certain type of build. So, that was an incredible drop for me. It's not. There's some items that can be worth several times more than that, but nonetheless, a white item in this game and in Diablo 3, they're essentially useless after the initial part of the game because there's no reason to have them other than for crafting purposes. And so, I value that about Diablo 2's itemization, and Diablo 3 really missed the mark on that big time. Because one of the biggest pulls to Diablo 2, and the reason why people like me still sometimes play it to this day, and I've played thousands of hours in that game, is because the loot chase, right? And that is, I think, I hate to say more important, unfortunately, it seems, from a psychological standpoint for longevity for this type of game, is the loot, right? Just yesterday, in Diablo 2 again, I found a Sur rune, which is one of the higher. It's 29 out of 33 runes, and it was my first time ever finding one on my own. First time ever. Thousands of hours into the game, and I've never found a Sur rune before. As a matter of fact, that's the highest rune I've ever found myself. I still have never found a bear, a jaw, a cham, or a Zod, for that matter. So the fact is that there are still several things that I haven't found. So in Diablo 2, maybe it was a little bit too difficult to find some things, right? So getting that balance right. But whereas in Diablo 3, Legendary is just falling from the sky like no one's business every time you do a rift. Any type of endgame content is, I don't necessarily like that. I don't know if I like that guarantee. I know lots of people. I think Ashava was guaranteed dropping multiple legendaries for people, and I don't know if I necessarily like that. I think it would be maybe more interesting if it was maybe a increased chance to drop one. Maybe 1 in 4 or 1 in 2. I don't know. I don't know what the number is really, but I don't particularly like that guaranteed every time. I'm just not so sure about that. I think it makes it too easy, And then because you're finding them so much, some of them are just going to naturally not be good. Or, oh, I found this one already. You know, I don't need this aspect, this power anymore. So I do have some concerns with that. And, you know, I'm just not sure. I know that there's different tiers of legendaries now. There's going to be sacred in World Tier 3, and there's going to be ancestral. I mean, I don't know enough about that, really. I don't know how big of a difference that'll be. I mean, in Diablo 3, we had Ancient and Primal Ancient, and really all those were just better stats, and that's boring. That's unbelievably boring. There's nothing exciting about that. I want to find an item, like in Diablo 2, I can find a magical item that could just be remarkable, or it could be absolute trash, you know? Same with rares, can be incredibly unique. And, you know, in this game, I think there's definitely a place for those things outside of crafting. I think you can, you know, take an aspect off of a legendary, remove it, and place it into another item, an item that you find with better stats, and I think that's really great. I love that about that. But I am concerned about that. And so I've been rambling a little bit here. Let's pause this video really quick, and let's just show you this video. I'm going to leave this in the description, okay, when I post this on YouTube. Let's leave a like to this guy. His name is Rob. And let's take a look at what he does with his Barbarian here. This is obviously max level, and he's got fully optimized gear and whatnot, but people who are complaining, saying the Barb is weak. Let's take a look at this massive, massive damage that he's doing. So look, he's doing 464, 700. Did you see that? Hold on. Let's pause that really quick. I'm going to try to pause it when he gets to that upheaval. Boom. Look at that. He was just hitting for, what was that? 400? 700? And then he does an upheaval and it hits for that? Okay. Let me just tell you right off the bat. In Diablo 3, when I first heard about that type of damage number, we were at level cap from the original D3, and I honestly couldn't believe how big that number was when I first heard it. And now, present day, we're in the many trillions of damage, I believe, you know, and from when I last played it, I guess. Those numbers, it's not exciting. It's just, they're hard to read. It doesn't make sense, you know. I appreciate the smaller damage amounts that we're seeing in, like, Diablo 2, and I was really hoping it would kind of give us a little reset and stay that way in Diablo 4, so they definitely need to do something about that. I think, fortunately, I think it's pretty easy to tune. It seems to be a problem with the Barbarian. Why? Because the Barbarian has an arsenal system where he can hold 4 different weapons, and he gains the stats from all 4 of those weapons. And then not only do you get the stats, but then you get the aspects, the legendary powers, and that's, how are they going to balance that around other characters that can only get to equip 2, right? Or even the rogue, which can equip 3, 2 daggers and a bow. So they're going to need to do something about that. They're going to need to do something. Like maybe at least you don't get, I think someone was commenting saying, well, maybe you don't get the powers of the aspects of the legendaries unless you're like actually using them, right? And not just like equipping them, right? So those things don't kick in necessarily. So it's just a bit much. I don't know what they're going to do about that, but they definitely need some balancing when it comes to that. And also, again, I want to feel excited when I see that like legendary drop, or you know, that sacred or that ancestral, whatever, you know, those items are. I want to get excited about that. Like I get excited when a rune drops, you know, which runes don't even drop that much in Diablo 2. Much less a higher rune. When it does, it's the high is so exciting, right? So I wanna feel that. You know, I think that's really important for this type of game. I mean, it's a loot-based game, right? And it's gonna be fun to play. I have no doubt about that, especially with your friends playing. I think there's gonna be a lot more to do, right? Fortunately, we didn't get to see the end game that much and whatnot. Well, not at all, really. I mean, you can call it end game at level 25. So we didn't get to really see that. I know lots of people who have experienced that in the closed beta last November, and I heard a lot of positive things, you know, but didn't get to experience that up front. Nonetheless, you know, I think that there's a good future for this game. I just hope that the focus is not. I know that they want to make money, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with contributing to that. Of course, if it makes sense, right? If it's fun, it's engaging, right? The different seasons, they'll give us new themes and ideas and reasons to come back and play the seasons. Because in Diablo 3, it really started to take a lot to bring me back. It had to be something really exciting, and even then, it only lasted a couple weeks at most. And I just really don't. I feel like I'm gonna be disappointed if the same thing happens in this game. I think the feel is great. It's fun to play. That's awesome. The itemization is a really important piece, and I hope they get it right. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. And from a casual standpoint, that's my perspective on it. That's my perspective. And I think for a more competitive person and for other types of players, maybe it's different. But I think I think it's safe to say the majority of us are more casual gamers, and we're not really looking for all of those things that other people are looking for. And so, I just want it to be fun, and I know it is, and I want it to be. I want to feel that excitement when I find items and that addictive quality that they have, and I felt that when I was playing it. I just don't know if it would last because it was only till I only got to level 20, right? So I don't really know about that, but. Anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Did you play it? Did you not? What do you think about my thoughts? I'd love to hear from you. Share some of your thoughts there. If you played, if you're going to be playing it, I'm obviously going to be playing it, and I'm going to be talking about this game a lot. I'm going to be covering this game a lot. It's going to be pretty much my main stay game for a while. I'll still play other games and whatnot too, just like I always do. But, this is going to be like probably the main thing for me for a bit. At least that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I hope. I hope it is, and I'm hopeful. But again, some of those things just leave me a little bit worried. So we'll see how it goes. And I want to thank you for taking the time to be here and listening to me ramble on for as long as I did. I'll leave a link to that video for the guy who did that Barbarian video in the description if you want to take a look. Otherwise, take care, and I'll see you when I see you. Sooner than later. Okay? All right, bye-bye.